Dennis Prager and Jordan B. Peterson had one of the most interesting conversations about anti-Semitism that you'll ever hear. Check it out.
Look, you said something. It was a throwaway line. You caught me on one of mine. I'll catch you on one of yours. That anti-Semitism is rooted in people's irritation at the idea of a judgmental God being brought into existence. I mean, that's a hell of a claim. So, I mean, do you believe that is the fundamental explanation?
Actually, yes. There are a lot of non-Jewish analysts. Edward Flannery, a major Catholic writer, and Ernest von den Haag, one of the greatest, clearest thinkers of the last century. They wrote about this. The Jews introduced this God into history, and they've never been forgiven for it. Also, I'll tell you another reason for anti-Semitism is people believe the Jews are chosen. See, this is everybody acknowledges that Jewish chosenness is a reason for anti-Semitism. However, as I pointed out, Jews are 0.2% of the world. Who gives a damn if 0.2% of the world thinks they're chosen? The Chinese think they're the center of the world.
Well, chosen and successful might be a very...
Thank you. That's correct. That's exactly right. So deep down, people don't laugh when Jews say they're chosen. They don't believe that Japan gets the sun before the rest of humanity, even though they are the land of the rising sun, and as the sun is on their flag. But nobody cares if the Japanese think they get the sun first. But they do care if the Jews think they're chosen. So there's been a tremendous amount of resentment of the fact that maybe they are. But of course, chosen never meant better, never. By the way, one other thing that this is...
Yeah, well, you got to ask yourself, do you really want to be chosen by God?
Well, as Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof said, why don't you choose somebody else once?
Yeah.
Jews have not benefited from chosenness, given.
Well, you might say they benefited and suffered disproportionately.
All right, that's fair, yes.
Yeah, and I don't know for sure if that's a fate that people would choose if they had the option.
That is exactly correct.
Okay, so let's go back to this Revelation thing, because I'm going to have these discussions and I need some guidance. And so we've got, now you made a claim, that the Torah is the source of Christianity and Islam and Judaism, obviously, as well. And so because it's the source, well, then what should be the attitude of other people of the book towards Jews and towards the Torah?
Well, among Christians, there's a schizophrenic view. For many in the church until the modern period, the Jews were a living rebuke. As one, I don't remember which Christian thinker said, that the Jews crucify Christ in every generation just by their continued existence. So there's been an animosity in Christendom because the Jews rejected their own. Jesus was Jewish, the apostles were Jewish, the claims were made on the basis of the Jewish Bible.
And do you think that's distinct from a sort of intrinsic tribalism? Do you think there's more to it than, we're tribal in a very deep sense.
Well, this transcended tribalism because it certainly wasn't ethnic. It was ideological, it was theological. Jesus comes to the Jews, and the very people that he came to are the ones who said he's not God and he's not Messiah. So this created a fair amount of resentment. American Christians were an anomaly, and I love them for it. American Christians said they were the second chosen people. The Jews were the first, and we Americans are the second, which I believe, by the way.
Okay, so let me ask you another question. This is this is a horrible question, and I've been dying to think it through for a long time. So there's a line of Christian thinking, I would say, and Northrop Frye, I think, a Canadian critic who wrote some great books on the Bible. You might be familiar with Frye. He wrote Words with Power, and there's a second volume, which I can't bring to mind at the moment, but he thought about the Torah as the story of the sequential rise and failure of the state, and that the New Testament was a consequence of the emergence of the idea that salvation was to be found through the individual and not through the state.
So this is the idea that a lot of new Christians have in general, that Jewish people and Israel specifically is not really, um, you know, a what they're referring to when it says that, they will bless you, etc. What they're really referring to is Christians, that it turned from a land to a people, and that Christians are the new Israel. And listen, I'm not really an expert on this, but it definitely is convenient, especially when you're anti-Israel, to go ahead and say that.
And that seemed to me to be parallel with the tension in the Old Testament between between dogma and the prophets. So is it the case? And is there a difference between Judaism and Christianity with regards to the degree to which the state is seen as the primary mode of redemption? And is that tangled up with the conflict in Israel?
Well, there are a lot of issues that are entangled in one. First of all, you should know that salvation plays a minimal role in Judaism. And I know biblical Hebrew very well, and I cannot think of even the term salvation. Second,
it seems to be more like the promised land.
Well, Judaism is earthbound. There's a tremendous belief in the afterlife, but it plays minimal role in the Torah, because as soon as you start focusing on the afterlife, the fear is that you won't focus on this life. And Judaism is extremely this life focused. Secondly, this is a very important point, and it is actually my biggest single reason for my adoration of the Torah and Judaism. It's the only religion that divides the world between good and evil, and not between believer and non-believer. So
right. So that seems to me, from a psychological perspective, as a move towards a further abstraction.
Well, it's not a psychological issue; it's a moral issue.
That's fine.
In our view, God does not divide the world between Jew and non-Jew, or believer and non-believer, but between good people and bad people. God sends good non-Jews to heaven and bad Jews to hell. That's why Jews welcome converts but never sought them, because you don't have to be a Jew to be saved. But you do have to be a Muslim, and you do have to be a Christian.
That is probably one of the biggest distinctions between Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, in that Islam and Christianity both believe that you need to become part of the religion. You have to become a Christian or become Muslim in order to partake in the afterlife, in order to even have a chance to go to heaven. And conversely, Judaism says, if you're a good person, if you're a righteous person, you will go to heaven regardless if you're Jewish, Muslim, or Christian. Now, we do believe it's a different type of heaven and hell, so non-Jews and Jews, I believe, go to different sort of, sets of like there's a Jewish heaven, there's a non-Jewish heaven, there's a Jewish hell, there's a non-Jewish hell. But again, there's less of a, you have to convert to Judaism, otherwise you will not be saved. It's more so, be righteous, follow the 7 Noahide laws, which are the 7 universal laws with regard to Jews and non-Jews. And basically, Jewish people have 613 commandments, and I'm sure most Jews don't follow all of them, obviously. Some of them you can't even follow due to there not being a temple. But the point is, you can be a non-Jew and still go to heaven according to Judaism. And that's not a knock on the other religions. That is just a great way to view how moral and why Jewish people are not looking to convert other non-Jews into Jews, because we feel like we don't have to convert you if you follow the 7 Noahide laws and the basic laws of every single Western democracy, every single Western country. You'll be good. I think that all the 7 Noahide laws are pretty basic to Western civilization. and therefore it's not that hard to follow. Although there are people definitely that steal, that do different things and lie and do break them, but generally good moral people will go to heaven, and I think that is a big advantage of the Jewish religion, and why we don't have to go out and convert people. For more, subscribe to the channel. If you want to help us make more of these videos, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. And if you want to support the channel further, you can go to our memberships page and join there. Now, Dennis Prager is very, very sick right now. He fell, and it resulted, I believe, in a paralyzing his entire body from the neck down. And he can still speak, he can still communicate, which is a big thing. But it seems that he needs major prayers right now. So pray for Dennis Prager. Go to his website at PragerU. Go to the YouTube channel. Look at the most recent update. I'm not 100% updated on what is the current situation, but it does seem like he was going to return to the radio, but then there was another setback, and we'll see what happens. So again, if you're praying, pray for Dennis Prager. He is an incredible human being, an incredible Jew, and he brings a lot to the world, and he should have a speedy recovery with God's help. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.